We are in match 2 of our third week of delving into Guilds of Ravnica Standard.
Third week.
Yeah, so now that we have all the cards available to us, we are just going full-blown trying to figure out what decks are going to be good in this new Standard format, a brand new world without Kaladesh.
And we've been exploring a lot of specific guilds, and these two decks finally are branching a little bit away from that. You are technically a Golgari deck, but you're really more of the mono-green, Steelleaf Stompy archetype touching black.
Yeah, so as with any multicolored set like Guilds of Ravnica, whenever those come out, if you want to try to play a monocolor deck, it's usually just better to find a way to splash like a powerful off-color card, just to give your deck a little bit more of a punch. Usually there's good lands, like we have Overgrown Tomb, Woodland Cemetery, and even Unclaimed Territory, since we're a heavy creature deck, to be able to play these off-color cards.
Specifically heavy elves.
Yes, specifically heavy elves, but I mean, some things also cross over. For example, Steelleaf Champion is a knight.
As is Midnight Reaper.
As is Midnight Reaper, a card that's very good against sweeper-based decks that try to kill all your creatures. But yeah, so I'm playing Steelleaf Stompy today. We're splashing for a few elves like Glowspore Shaman. Works really well with Pelt Collector. It's a 3/1, so it triggers it. The graveyard stuff doesn't really matter. It's just more of a power thing.
It sometimes can help you hit your third land drop, so that's not to be overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a solid body. So this is an archetype that I think everyone expects to be a player in the early Standard format. Just Llanowar Elves, Steelleaf Champion, such a strong opening curve. Mm-hmm. There's enough support out there. You get a really good removal spell in Assassin's Trophy. So this is going to be a really big test for my deck, because I'm playing a base Selesnya deck. And I've my article up today on StarCityGames.com is all about Selesnya being the best guild. I think it's great. They have really, really good mana. And I'm going to push that mana a little bit further. I'm splashing red for Heroic Reinforcements.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that card works, because we were just goldfishing some games while we were down, and it looks scary.
Yeah,
the deck goldfish is crazy.
I think the Convoke cards are actually really good, and I was initially a little too conservative with how many I put in my decks. I'm up to 10 here, and that still might be too few. I've got 4 Loxodon, 4 Conclave Tribunal, and 2 March of the Multitudes. But most of your token generators make white tokens, and most of the spells that you're convoking cost white, so you can cast them for free on your really strong curves. We still got History Benalia, got Legions landing at the low end of the curve, really base white, which helps both the Boros and Selesnya guilds are white, so that's going to be your base color. So I think the mana is really good. I think there's a lot of strong synergy here, and hopefully I can overcome the power of Steelleaf Champion.
Yeah. All right, before we get started, Mr. Stevens had some questions from Twitch chat to ask us. Fire away.
All right, from Demi Eyes. Question for Ross. The question is there not enough 1-drops in your deck? Like, are you playing enough 1-drops?
So I am playing 4 copies of Legion's Landing and 1 copy of Snubhorn Sentry. I think you might want another copy or 2 of the Snubhorn, because it's a really good early 1-drop that you can cast. You can use it to convoke, and then once you get a bunch of tokens into play, you should have the City's Blessing, and it becomes this really important 3/3 attacker. It's this extra body. So I might be short 1 or 2. I wanted to play Benelish Marshal to see how hard it was on the mana, and I think that could end up being a second Snubhorn Sentry to be better, but this deck doesn't need a ton of 1-drops. You're not looking to be super aggressive. We're not killing on turn 3, turn 4.
Yeah.
We're really just trying to set up and have a really big turn on turn 4 and 5 and just create this overwhelming board presence. And
yeah, I mean, there's also potential that there's a build of your deck that tries to support Llanowar Elves as a mana accelerator to, even go so crazy as playing a turn 2 History of Benalia. Like if you go turn 1 Temple Garden, turn 2 any white land, whether it's Clifftop Retreat, Sunpetal Grove, or just Plains, like casting a turn 2 History of Benalia is bananas.
But it's really tough splashing red when you're playing Llanowar Elves because all the Boros lands don't make green.
Right.
So I think Llanowar Elves has to be in the strictly Selesnya versions of the deck, which I do have lists of, and I think are strong. And those lists are going to have more 1-drops. But for now, I think I'm fine. We're not trying to come out of the gates super fast.
All right, Todd from Dire Nate asks, is Stompy the best deck right now?
Well, that's... No offense, that's a bad question. We don't know what the best deck is. We have all these new mechanics from all the guilds of Ravnica. Surveil looked pretty good in the last deck. I think that the self-mill strategies with sacrifice stuff, as well as just undergrowth, is a very unexplored archetype that's going to take time to really flesh out. I like the mentor ability from Boros, and it's really about, can these older cards support these new mechanics? And is Guilds of Ravnica even good enough to compete with the last year's worth of cards? I think yes. I think a lot of these new cards look really good, but at the same time, This is the deck that feels like it's the most intact. Like the Steely
Yeah.
Stompy deck did not lose very much. I mean, Lenarolf into Steely Paladin is still a bonkers start. And now you get to follow that up with either Nolhod Ferox or just like a big Galta like pretty early on. Your opponent needs very specific answers to deal with it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most obvious decks. That makes it better in the early weeks of the format. But as for whether it's going to be a staying tier 1 deck in the format, we just don't know.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Okay.
All right, let's go and get to the match. High roll, so you goes first.
Sure.
Or 7-11 game.
7-11 game.
All right, I rolled a 9.
I rolled a 7.
Yeah, I'll be on the play.
So
this
Ross,
is-
if you want another 1-drop, what about Hunted Witness?
That is not a particularly good card in a Convoke deck because you're not usually trading off your creatures very much, and you have plenty of other tokens for them to trade with if that's what they're going to be forced to do. Generally, Hunted Witness is going to be better in a Boros deck when you can stack counters on it and make it a bigger threat. Venerated Loxodon helps a little bit there, but overall, I think it's a weak card for the Selesnya side of things.
All right, my hand's great. You're going to get stomped.
My hand is also great.
All right, start with the Lenorels, and so you go.
Yep.
Todd says, you gonna get stomped.
I will play a Legion's Landing and get a Vampire.
All right. All right, so now we can play a Branchwalker or a Glowspore Shaman. I guess neither is going to be that great right now. They both kind of help me hit my land drop. I think I actually just want to Glowspore Shaman. It lets me see 3 cards to try to hit my lands.
When Todd said his hand was great, I assumed that meant he was playing Steel Leaf Champion here. And
I
that,
mean, I really wanted to. I mean, any hand
That's what I thought,
with
too.
Lenorels. Oh no, I didn't hit a land. Oh well. Go.
Okay, and Glowspore Shaman's going to be a liability against all my 1/1 tokens, so pretty happy to see that one.
We don't really want to attack into vampire tokens and such because we want to make sure we have enough power to play Galta.
Was really hoping to draw one of my 2-drops here for turn 2, was unable to do so, so I'm going to cast 2 copies of Flower.
Go get 2 or plains and a forest.
Yeah, Plains and Forest. Pass
Okay.
turn.
All right, so Todd, while he's doing that, with this from Jay Wiley 129, with Field of Ruin and Assassin's Trophy in Standard, what's the minimum number of basics you want to play in your decks?
Okay, I said Plains and Forest, but I actually meant Plains and Mountain.
Sure. Honestly, I
Wait,
would
it doesn't
not.
get Mountain, does it?
Oh
No,
yeah,
it
it doesn't.
only
That's
gets-
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
that's the problem. It's not actually. Good call, Todd. Okay, I only have 1 forest in my deck. Or pretty sure I only have 1 forest. So 2 plains.
Well, we haven't hit a land. That's unfortunate, and I still don't really want to attack with Glowspore Shaman. So, your turn. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, the I think the minimum number of basics is kind of gonna hover around 4 or 5. I think most decks are gonna want to play some number of shock lands, some number of the buddy lands, whether it's like Clifftop Retreat, Woodland Cemetery, etc. And those do, check basic lands as well as just whatever land type. So
I am writing down the history of Benalia here.
Yep.
The first chapter.
Ooh.
A knight was born.
yikes.
Ross, people are asking, including Werewolf and others, what about Divine Visitation, the new white mythic for your deck?
Yeah, I mean, look, that card can do some things, but I'm not impressed. It's just a card that you play usually after you've cast a lot of token makers, and you're hoping to sort of untap with it and do something cool. But the fact that it doesn't do anything by itself is worrisome, because for the most part you can take over the game with cards that have some standalone functionality. Okay, so we made another knight. I'm going to play another Legion's Landing and get another vampire token. And then I'm going to play a Venerated Loxodon, convoking with all 3, so I can get counters on all of them.
It's pretty good.
I thought so.
That's not bad. It's not bad.
I think this card is just great.
Yeah,
and then
that's awesome.
we'll play a tap Sacred Foundry.
I'll go ahead and kill his 4/4.
So, Ross, you think that basic land is great? Is that what you're saying?
Getting a mountain here so that I leave more planes in my deck in case I want to flower for them, although at this point I think I'll be flourishing a lot more often. I take 4, go to 16.
Yep. Your turn.
Okay.
Not a great start for my deck. I thought, if I just hit a land drop off of either Glowspore on 2 or just naturally, So went turn 3, Nullhide Ferox.
Third chapter of the history. I'm going to start this turn. I could attack with both vampires and throw one away to transform this Legion's Landing, but I think I can wait on that. I'm just going to attack with the Knight for 5.
Yep, I'm taking that because
You got a 15.
It threatens to trade right now with Steel Leaf, and I it'll just get small next turn, and I'm at a high enough life total to just take it.
And now I want to play another Loxodon, but I think I want to leave one vampire back just for like checking Todd's other things in case he has another trophy in hand. So I'm going to tap just 2. The Loxodon will check the Steel Leaf Champion potentially, and if he deals with this second Loxodon, then now this Knight will be a 4/4, and it can check it. So we'll just go counter.
All right.
I guess actually, maybe I do want to tap that and just be able to get both down because I haven't played a land yet.
So want to point out with Assassin's Trophy, remember it's not like Path to Exile. The land comes in untapped.
Good point.
Oh, true. Yeah, I think this might be better. This just gets so much power on the battlefield. Todd just doesn't have a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
I think Venerary Luxon is an insane card.
I have a question about that card, actually, for Ross.
Turn.
Jay Wiley asks, obviously Luxodon is maximizing the green-white thanks to the tokens, but what about it in a Boros shell to be able to pump the mentor creatures?
Yeah, I mean, I think this card's just really good. Boros has better standalone threats, and they tend to be worse with Convoke. But if this card is that powerful, it might make it worth it. You could play it with Heroic Reinforcements in a Boros deck, too. That might be a way to take the Boros shell.
Go.
All right, a question from Kiwi is, either of you, do you guys think that the meta will slow down significantly? Because people thought that during preview season, but we've seen so far on the Versus Live that the aggro decks are looking really good.
I mean, I think any multicolored format generally is going to be a little slower than the previous format, especially if it was like artifact based or 1 and 2 color deck based. But from what we've seen, the lands actually mostly come in, enter the battlefield untapped. Things like Sacred Foundry and then the Buddy Lands checking means that for the most part, your lands don't really slow you down that much. So as long as you just hit the right colors at the right time, you can kind of explode. And I think we're going to see once decks get fleshed out, once they become more just consistent, and we're going to find the efficient builds of each. It's possible that this could be an insanely fast format.
Yeah. I think I'm supposed to attack with the 3 big uns to try to transform this. The Nullhide Ferox will be able to eat one of them, but transforming this is worth that sacrifice, especially because I'm going to get in a pretty big chunk of damage.
This will block the 5, and this will block the 4.
Okay. You don't want to block this 4?
Yeah, I'll block the Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, the Vigilance 4 seems better. So you take 4 damage.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to 11.
11. This transforms. I'm going to play a tapped Temple Guard. And now I have Adonto to check the Nullhide Ferox. And do I want to start chump blocking now? I'm at 20. I think I can just take one.
I have you at 16. Did you gain 4 life at some point?
No, we have you at 16 also.
No? Okay, I just didn't miss it.
I hit you
okay.
for 4.
Yeah, I just didn't write it down.
Okay.
So if you have me at 16, that's to take me to 10. I still think I could take 10, or take 6 and go to 10.
Okay. All right, I'll name Elf with this and play another Ferox.
That's pretty good. I will get another...
Actually, that might be bad. I need to...
When you have 6 mana, you can pay 4 and then still trophy.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if you had 1 fewer mana, then yeah, it becomes a liability, but...
That's fair.
I guess it's the Ross Draws a Million Land show today.
Good. Your deck's too good.
I was wondering whether or not I should
deck
hold
was not great, and then this deck's too good.
I was wondering whether I should hold one of these, and now I'm getting punished for casting them both.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the split cards I think just has the biggest payoff for not playing it early, but also is just smooths out your draws early on, which is nice.
So, Todd, a question from Nobuyuki. Are there any Find Finality in your list? And if not, do you think that card deserves some attention?
There are not. I think it might be a fine sideboard card if you play against a deck with a lot of like cast downs and things like that, just as a way to recoup card advantage. If you play Glowspore Shaman, it also gives you a little bit of added benefit from that. And and you have enough creatures that have high toughness that the finality part might actually be good as well. But I am not sold that that card is actually good. And plus, we got stuck on 3 mana for a long time earlier. So
I'm going to triple block one of them and play around an Assassin's Trophy.
yeah, I will just let that happen.
Yeah, deal with the 2 vampire tokens. These trade even on life, so life total stays the same.
All right, and Pastor?
End of turn, make another vampire.
All right, I am going to undo the Nullhide Ferox, and I think I just want to kill this.
All right, so for Todd from Werewolf, what about Statue Status? It's a nice combat trick and a removal spell. I was keeping Vivian in the sideboard to play that instead.
I think Vivian is just a busted Magic card that didn't. It saw a little bit of play last standard season, but not a ton. I'm kind of in love with it, honestly. And as far as statue and status is concerned, I believe the front half is +1/+1 and Death Touch for 1 mana. That ability is not all too desirable. Like, you can save some of your cheaper creatures from like a shock sometimes. And I don't think that that's good enough. Like, if it was +1/+1 indestructible or something, like some effect that could effectively be a blossoming defense of sorts, I think it would be good. But 4 mana to kill a creature, or was it creature, artifact, or enchantment? Like, that part might just be good enough on its own. But as a Stompy deck, I just don't know.
Is Vivian plus Nullhide, is that a concern? Like having Nullhide where you can't cast the spells unless you pay 2 more?
No, it is a concern. That's why there's only 1 Vivian in the deck. I think against most decks where Vivian is great, Nullhide Ferox is a card that your opponent basically has to kill or they'll die. So once they spend a bunch of mana and a way to deal with it, I think it's good. All right, so this is a 4/4.
Yep.
All right, for Ross, how about Legion War Boss in your Naya tokens deck?
I'm just touching red, so I don't want to have too many red cards in my deck. And so I don't think you can really play War Boss. Yeah, just not enough red sources.
I have you still at 10, right?
Yeah,
we can't
10 to
put out
11.
a big life swing.
You can go.
Yeah, but once you draw March of the Multitudes, it's going to be tough sledding for me.
Okay.
All right.
So we have Mark Secura, who's been asking for both of you about is it in Modern, and their question was, okay, is the new 2 mana red wall, which is electrostatic?
Electrostatic Field.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Is it strictly worse than Thing in the Ice, or can it see play in Blue Moon?
11.
And then
12,
also
right?
is Expansion Explosion
12.
Explosion too clunky to be the Sphinx's Revelation for Is It?
I think it's... what? Are you just dead?
Yeah, 6 to 12.
Little anticlimactic finish there. Ross's deck, super fast out of the gates. We'll get to that question in just 1 second.
Yeah.
The flood there at the end, though, just... I don't know what to do about it. Like, your deck was so explosive early on. You fetched multiple lands out of your deck. I trophied you twice, and you still just drew all lands. Maybe, I don't know, maybe... Anyway. So, Electrostatic Field versus... what was the card they were comparing
versus
to? Thing in the Ice?
Thing in the Ice for Blue Moon.
Definitely not the same card. Thing in the Ice being able to basically upheaval your opponent's non-land permanents is a huge deal. It's a much faster clock. I think Thing in the Ice is definitely a better card for that deck. And even though they both have 4 toughness, are defenders, I think the effect of transforming Thing in the Ice is just way better than Electrostatic Field.
Okay. So for Ross, do you think Elves will be playable tribe in Standard with Clan Caller, Pelt Collector, Steel Leaf Champion, Marwyn, all that?
I definitely think there is the potential for Elves. I wrote about it in an article a couple weeks ago. You can be green-black or green-white. Steel Leaf Champion is an elf.
Mm-hmm.
That the green decks don't have great 2-drops right now, and I actually think Clan Caller is a very good one. And you're playing almost 20 elves naturally, and this is a format that's going to have Assassin's Trophy and Settle the Wreckage in it, so having mana sinks is going to be important because people give you a lot of basics.
Right.
And Clan Caller is a really good mana sink.
No, I agree.
Thorn Lieutenant's also an elf. So
yeah, Thorn Lieutenant's a good elf and a good mana sink. I like, even though it's not an elf, you're talking about 2-drops for green. One card that I was considering for this deck, I just copied Arilax's deck from his article that came up yesterday, but I believe it's Crawl Harpooner. It's a 2 mana 3/2. great body for the cost. It only costs a green and 1, which is unheard of for a green 2-drop. I think
Branch Walker.
we had like Crozian Tusker was a
You literally have
green
Merfolk Branch Walker.
Yeah, but it's not always a 3/2. The ability on Harpooner though is relevant if we see things like the Tempest Gen deck actually come out. We saw Ken Yukihiro play that at the World Championships. Like a 2-mana card that can fight it to death seems very powerful. But it's also a May ability. Like, you just don't have to fight something, and it can just be a 2-mana 3/2, which is cool.
Yep.
But if things like Dimir Spybug get popular, just having a way for this mono green-esque deck to just be able to deal with early flyers, which are usually problematic for green decks, is important.
Yeah, Nightfell Sprite, Siren Storm Tamer. There's definitely some things it can take down. So that is an option for these green decks, but I do think Elves is a way to take it because I like Clan Caller. I was hoping for another good tribal payout, but I don't think the 4-mana one is particularly good. So maybe there's not quite enough, but there's definitely the volume of Elves is there, and that's usually the thing that you're missing on.
All right, we're going to take a quick break while Ross and I sideboard for Game 2 of Steely Stompy versus Naya Tokens.
And we are back here sideboarding with Naya Tokens against Golgari Stompy. I am going to take a long game approach to this matchup. I think if I can contain Todd's bigger threats, the Steely Champions, the Nullhide Feroxes, and the Galtas, then I'm going to take over the game going along. So I'm going to cut down some of my early creatures, these Shaunas, that are generally good when I'm curving out and are bad when I'm trying to trade some of my tokens early, which is what I want to do against the aggressive deck. I'm going to bring in some removal. The Baffling Ends will take care of Steely Champion, which will allow me to then focus my Conclave Tribunals on the bigger creatures.
Right.
And then I'm bringing in Lyra, which is a card that can just go over the top of what Todd's doing as a threat that he absolutely needs to answer. And I'm cutting 1 Snubhorn Sentry because I'm not trying to be as fast, and then 1 Heroic Reinforcements because, again, that's sort of setting up the combo finishes that I'm not looking for. I'm just going to grind him out with a bunch of excess bodies and then go big with Lyra.
Yeah, on my side, Plague Mare, a very good addition to this deck, especially if Celestia becomes a really pertinent deck in the format. Just being a Chain Whirler-esque effect, I think is really powerful. It's just the only thing we really have access to that can handle a lot of these smaller creatures without really crushing my small toughness creatures.
It's also a card I just can't block, except for District Guide. Okay, I have 2 creatures, 3 creatures in my deck that block that.
Sure. I mean, it's not like we're putting the +6/+6 thing on it, but we're bringing in a second.
That would be a sweet plan.
Yeah. We're bringing in Vivian Reed. I mean, we already do sometimes with Vine Mare, right? Anyway, Vivian Reed is another card that's like a way to disenchant the things like Conclave Tribunal, which white tends to lean on these exiling enchantments to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as creature removal is concerned. Vivian also has the ability to sometimes tick down and kill something like History of Benalia before he's able to generate a second creature off of it. While it is a Nombo with Nullhide Ferox, I think that we had a bunch of mana last game by the end of the game. We could have played Vivian on the same turn we played Ferox, I think. So we just get to pick and choose, basically. And I feel like I'm going to have to grind pretty hard after sideboard. Another Galta, just a big thing that tramples over, gets around the tokens. Rabbit Chupacabra helps me deal with Ross's payoffs, things like Amara. He's taking out Shauna, but Shauna can be a real problem and get bigger than a lot of my creatures if Ross's draw is pretty good. But it also deals with things like Lear Dawnbringer, the Venerated Luxodon's a 4/4, which can usually trade with a lot of my stuff, and just having a way to tempo kill it and still have a body to protect from some of the smaller creatures is important. And since our curve is going up a little bit, we're bringing in a Golgari Guild.
So bringing in some black cards, so
yep.
Another black source is nice.
Glowspore Shaman, 1 toughness, looks pretty bad against a lot of his token generators. Midnight Reapers was the last cut. I was trying to figure out a different cut for it. It's possible that it is better than something like a Pelt Collector, since we are cutting Glowspore, so we don't have that Pelt Collector into good 2-drop very much. So I think I'm actually going to do that instead. Just board out some of these creatures that aren't really for this matchup.
People are pointing out that Shauna cannot be hit by Chupacabra.
Abilities, you're right. Womp womp.
Yeah.
I'm a dummy.
All right, Ross, do you think, so we were just talking about elves just a little bit ago. Do you think an elf ball build with Beast Whisper and Marwyn could be possible? And if not, what is it missing? That's from Ego Fiend.
I don't think a deck like that would be possible, and what it's missing is a density of mana creatures. Yes. That deck would be heavily reliant on untapping with a turn 1 Llanowar Elves in order to get its engine started.
Well, doesn't Marwyn have mana generation based on number of
Yeah,
counters
it gets a counter when you play an elf, but when playing a 3-mana 1/1, you're just going to fall behind very often against decks and standard, or they're just going to kill it.
Right.
So it's pretty hard to untap with Marwyn. And if you're not going to untap when generate a ton of mana with Marwyn, then you need to back that up with other mana creatures. All the elf ball decks play a bunch of mana creatures and Heritage Druid and Birchlore Rangers like that. They make mana with almost every creature they have. In Legacy, Quirion Ranger helps you make extra mana untapping your creatures. So you need all your cards to go towards that elf ball aspect rather than being aggressive creatures. Right. And a lot of the elves that we have in Standard are more geared towards that typical aggressive game plan.
All right, Todd from Crackster. Brad was playing lots of J-Light Rangers last week. Will that be true for upcoming Standard, or was that just the best thing at the time of the preview season?
I mean, Jailer Ranger is still a great card. I don't really know what the a lot of these decks are going to look like yet. But I mean, Jailer Ranger saw a reasonable amount of play in the last Standard format, and it wasn't, particularly dominant. And the decks it was in was not particularly good against things like red-black vehicles and such. But I think the card is certainly fine, and at the very least, it's a card that we have played with before, and we know it's pretty good at helping you hit land drops. So it seems like it's just a fine card.
I have a pretty reasonable hand here. We need to draw a third land, but if we do, we're going to do some cool stuff.
My hand is a little slow, but good, so I'm going to keep.
Okay, I will start on a Legion's Landing.
All right, Ross from Lord Draken. Will Chain Whirler still keep down the token strategies?
I don't think Chain Whirler is going to see a ton of play because it's really hard to have the density of really strong creatures in one color, or almost one color, 19 to 21.
Yeah, I'm at 19.
Pass. So, and if Chain Whirler sees some play, that's not a death knell to token strategies. It's the fact that Chain Whirler was part of the dominant deck that was 30 to 40% of the metagame. And that's just not going to happen again.
All right, Todd from Mingletonio. How good do you think the Is It Amulet deck is?
I think it had some holes when I built it, but it felt promising. It's definitely something I'm still working on, but could end up being great. I'm going to shock down to 17 and attack for 1, put you to 20.
Yep.
I'll say go.
Interesting.
Kind of tipping my hand here, but I don't want to lose out on the ability to potentially cast Assassin's Trophy if it's a tempo play here.
You're at 21, you're at 16, I'm at 21?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to Assassin's Trophy my district guide?
Not really. I kind of want to go and kill your Legion's Landing, though. But ramping you up to 5 seems real dangerous.
Yeah.
There, I'll just let it happen.
All right, Todd, about your deck. Could Charnel Troll be an option for the Stompy deck, maybe as like a 2-of, since it goes well with Glowspore, or is that too risky?
I think it's a little too risky. With just 4 Glowspore as your only way to self-mill, there's a chance that you just aren't going to be able to play Charnel Troll for a very long time. So I don't love it. Here I'm in a pickle. I don't know if I should name Horse or Horror with my unclaimed territory. And even if if I draw something like a Steel Leaf Paladin next turn, or Steel Leaf Champion, I can't even cast it. So I'm going to name Nightmare. And then I'm going to play a Midnight Reaper, put a counter here. And then I'm going to attack. And then if he blocks, I'm going to draw a card.
All right, Ross from Gurmag. What do you think about an Abzan token list that with a black splash for duress in the board to counter the white board wipes that are inevitable to be a big part of the format?
Sounds reasonable. The Abzan mana is definitely workable. Duress will be good. I don't know what else you really gain from playing black cards.
Somebody else also asked about that deck. What about Twilight Prophet for the black card for that deck to be able to get the City's Blessing with the tokens?
Splashing a double black card is hard, but it's doable with District Guide and the fact that you're in Abzan, so you have access to more dual lands. But I'm skeptical.
All right, Todd. I've had a few different people ask about Jeskai midrange. So this last one's from Last Chance PR. So Todd, do you think a Jeskai midrange could be viable enough, or would the meta be too fast for it?
I mean, I think that some form of blue-eye control will see play and will likely be very popular just because it's very close in build to previous versions of control that we saw last format.
I'm going to find a plains, play that tapped, and pass the turn.
We have the blue-red dual lands and the red-white dual lands. The question is, what do you want red for? And if you want red for removal spells, like, why? I mean, we still have Seal Away. We have Gideon's Reproach if you want it. Red is traditionally a removal color in these control decks, and if that's the case, like, you need to justify playing all these red dual lands because we don't have Howled Fountain. So I don't know. It's close. You need a really good reason to play red, and I don't know that there is one.
Okay. So this question's for either of you. Have either of you been trying to make any deck with Gruesome Menagerie? That's 3 black sorcery where you choose the creature card with converted mana cost 1, 2, and 3 from your graveyard to the battlefield.
I've definitely thought about that card. I think it's interesting.
I actually sent Ross a list with Gruesome Menagerie that I wanted him to play instead of his.
I'll take 6, 13.
But he chose to go with his build instead for the Golgari deck. Probably a mistake because he got mooshed.
And also, do y'all think that that's a plant for Orzhov for the next set?
Could be.
March of the Multitudes for 5, and then use those to convoke a Loxodon.
Wow. Huh.
So
Okay.
I've got 5 of these tokens that all have counters on them, and you can go.
Nice.
So we're a little slow. We spent a lot of time setting up for that turn, but the lifelink on these tokens should help a lot in catching us back up. Also have a 4/4 that blanks.
Galta's a big one.
That's a big boy.
Big mama.
Big boy. I love the Midnight Reaper is not a May ability.
Are you
so
dead?
I might be dead.
I just drew this one, and I've got a way to deal with a blocker.
So you take care of this.
Are you dead?
And I have to block.
Yeah,
and take
exactly.
damage.
You have to block and take damage from those. So if I deal with Pelt Collector and get 2 more tokens, and everything gets +1/+1, these are now 3/3s. This is the biggest one, so that gets there, and then these block 2 3/3s, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3/3s, and 3 2/2s is 21.
Yeah, I'm way dead.
Yeah, Heroic Reinforcements, baffling on that.
So Heroic Reinforcements, you get 2 soldiers, right? And
Yeah.
then all your creatures get +1/+1 in haste.
And haste.
So this is just an astronomical amount of damage.
Yeah. So these do not have lifelink, where the ones have Overmarch do.
Yeah.
So I'll flip these over.
That's fine. So even if I block the district guides, which I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't
they're
matter.
just as big as the lifelink
Yeah,
tokens.
so they're all 3/3. I'm taking 2 from
21.
4, 6, and then 3, 6, 9, 12, 18. So 21 damage, 23 damage, 25 damage.
Yeah, because Midnight Reaper's not a May.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Nice. Yeah, the big turn
Combo?
there. The big turn there, the March of the Multitudes plus
Oh,
Venerated Luxon.
trigger.
Yeah. Plus Venerated Luxon in
Yeah,
the,
gotta play tight.
same turn, just giving all his creatures 2 toughness so that Plague Mare couldn't sweep him was a huge play from Ross, and something that, I kind of tipped my hand I had to with Unclaimed Territory to be able to start playing stuff. And I could have used it to just kill a vampire, but that just felt like such a low impact play.
Yeah, I agree.
Ross's
So-
deck doing Ross's thing.
So Todd, do you think that Unclaimed Territory is worth it in your 2-color deck?
I'm not sure. I mean, there are some ways for it to help you and cast some of your double black cards, or just cast your black cards in general because they sometimes share a creature type. Like I said, this is Ari Lax Brew from his article yesterday, and if you want to read more about that, make sure to head over to StarCityGames.com and check it out. I am just taking it for a test run. I didn't change anything.
I like Unclaimed Territory a lot because I don't think 8 dual lands is really enough for all
Yeah.
but the smallest of splashes.
Well, I'm also playing like 2 or 3. I think I have 2 Guildgates main and then 1 more on the board, and that's also a detriment to playing your big 3 drops on turn 2. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Also not a fan of Guild Gates.
Yeah, I'm also not a fan of Guildgates, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
It's another reason to be elves. You get to play District Guide, fix your mana that way.
All right.
True. That's true.
They're saying that you may have Todd, you may have the District Guides in your deck instead of Ross's deck.
Oh, you stole my cards?
Just
Sure.
steal. He liked your cards more.
Oh, just now did I take
Yeah.
them because
Yeah.
you attacked me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were looking to
nice.
like block them and then you just picked them up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man.
Good catch. Man,
I like
chat's great.
Yeah, I like having chat here.
Chat lethal.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means, honestly.
All right. Either of you are either of you interested in Grixis Control in the new metagame?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, dude, Nicol Bolas Ravager is one of the least explored powerful cards from Core Set 2019 that, when it first came out, I was huge on the card. I thought it was going to be like Siege Rhino-esque. And I think once we get access to Rakdos, Rakdos is going to be a major part of the deck. Like, if we get like a Terminate type card or something like that. You know, I just want more cards for Grixis. And right now we have blue red and black blue, but we really want black red for some some fun. Got some good cards in Rakdos.
It's difficult to realize where Nicol Bolas fits.
Right.
Right.
Do you want it at the top end of your aggressive deck, or do you want it somewhere else? Like, do you want it in a control shell?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's just enough other good creatures in those colors to go with Nicol Bolas.
Yeah, to be a mid-range deck.
Yeah, to be a mid-range
There's
deck.
Doom Whisperer. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I played the first week that we started the Versus Live. I played a Grixis deck against Brad that got mooshed, but the pieces felt like they were there. I just built it incorrectly.
I know a little something about getting mooshed.
Yeah, my hand is weak, but I'm gonna keep it.
This hand I do not think is keepable. I just have too much high end in it with 2 Loxodons and a March. Like if I absolutely knew I was drawing Amara and untapping with both, then this hand would be great.
Sure.
But not enough.
All right, while Ross taking a mulligan, let's get some more questions in.
I was drawing 2 good ones.
All right, question for both. Do you think that Rekindling Phoenix and Angrath are powerful enough to move to Jund rather than straight up black-green? That's from Professor Ham.
So we don't have Gruul or Rakdos yet. So for me, without those lands, I find it very tough to want to build a Jund deck. Obviously, you can. Like, you still have Dragon Skull Summit. You still have Rootbound Crag. And, you still have... what's the one shock land that's legal in the deck?
Overgrown Tomb.
Overgrown Tomb. So, I mean, you can do that, but... Like, why would you? Like, you just get access to less powerful cards because, you're playing 3 colors and you only have one set of multicolor cards that really fit.
Yeah, so Rekindling Phoenix in particular is going to be really difficult to cast in that deck when you have all these green-black dual lands.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
well, I mean, you can still play the Rootbounds and the
Dragon Skull Summits.
Yeah.
For Ross, how's the District Guide feeling in your deck? Do you think you like it more than Knight of Autumn or the Swiss Autumn Knife?
District Guide was very good in that second game, just making my land drop so I could set up the my big turn. Definitely better than Knight of Autumn would have been. Knight of Autumn is more of like a mid-range value creature by itself, a standalone threat. I have them on my sideboard because they're just really versatile, but it's not something I'm looking for in this deck. This deck just needs a huge critical mass of resources, and District Guide helps you do that. I am going to keep this one. It's a little risky, but it's pretty good if it pays off, and I'm going to hope to draw what I need, and that works. God, that card's great.
Belt Collector, your turn.
Might get a little bit run over here, but let's start on Flower for a Forest.
Dude, I love the fact that you can tap white for that.
Oh, I know.
So
It's a
Basic Plains,
huge
Flower.
part of why I think the card is good.
All right, I'm going to go to 18, and we drew literally the perfect draw. Merfolk Branchwalker. It's going to trigger the Pelt Collector. Then we're going to explore.
Todd always draws the perfect draw.
That's
I'm not
Just
sure
not
if it's
even
necessarily
remotely true.
Todd or my opponent.
what? I still need a land. I missed. I'm probably not going to play a spell next turn.
Okay.
So
well,
you're at 18 from the attack.
I am.
If we draw a land, you are in trouble.
I have Forest Amara. Pass turn.
All right, Ross, what do you think about Turbo Fog post-rotation? Will it survive?
It's interesting given that how well the aggro decks have been doing in our early testing, but I'm skeptical that the mana is good enough.
So you'd have Gift of Paradise and Chromatic Lantern
Take 4.
to be able to fix.
14.
That's 5.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, 13.
All right, 13. This sucks, but I'm an Assassin Trophy or Mara. Giving a land is not great there, but I'm just hoping that most of his expensive stuff is Convoke based, and it doesn't really change much because the land comes in untapped. So I needed a land there to be able to play Steel Leaf, pump this, smoosh in for 6, and have just an unbelievable amount of power on the battlefield on turn 3. Having trouble hitting our land drops. I mean, that's definitely a reason why Glowspore Shaman's in the deck. You mill 3, you can find a land, put it on top of your deck, so it smooths your draw. Branchwalker, similar reason, but
Question for either of y'all from McCrae96. Out of all of the cards in Guilds of Ravnica, besides Assassin's Trophy and Knight of Autumn, which are really obvious, what other cards are you excited about for Modern or Legacy?
I'm excited for Goblin Electromancer. No, I mean, I don't think we've barely had time to play with these cards in Standard. I think those are just the obvious, kind of upgrades for those older formats.
Pass turn. Really wish this card was an instant,
Yeah.
but it's not. I also shocked, so I'm at 11.
Roll. Fortunately, I don't think this works. Right?
Correct. It's,
Okay. All right. So
the trigger will never go on the stack.
if I just attack with Branch Walker, I mean, I think clearing his tokens is. I mean, he might venerate Luxon next turn, and that would not be great. And he can't eat both of them. So the question is, do I want to attack with just Branch Walker or both? And I think both forces him to double block this, going to 8. And then if he... Yeah, I mean, I'll attack with both. I just want to keep as many creatures off the battlefield
I'm at 8.
as possible. Your turn.
This needs to be a good one. Why do you do this to me? What did I do? Really needed a land there. Instead, I drew a land that enters tapped, essentially.
Yikes.
And now I'm far enough behind that I'm forced to Conclave Tribunal this thing.
Okay.
Pass the turn.
All right, I'll take 2. I'm at 16. I'm going to hit you for 2 down to
6.
And I think I want to play Steel Leaf Champion over Nullhide Ferox here because of the evasiveness. Like, he could just chump block Ferox, right? It doesn't have trample, just hexproof. So, good turn.
All right, Todd, question from a little while ago. What do you think of Sultai with Meldrotha over, like, do you like that more than just staying straight green-black or blue-black?
Real quick, I'm going to finish this game off.
Yeah, he's just killing my thing, getting me.
So I think Muldrotha is a very good Magic card. You kind of need to build around it a little bit, but I mean, as far as top end goes, it is one of the best things you can do as long as you have permanents to play out the graveyard. Like, it's insanely good with things like the Eldritch Reborn. If your opponent doesn't deal with it, it will single-handedly take over the game. We saw a build that Brad played 2 weeks ago that looked pretty promising, and you know, he had Muldrotha on the top end. I don't think he ever cast it, but in theory, I think it's very good.
All right, Ross, with Aurelia and then also Rekindling Phoenix being some of the best cards in Standard, do you think that there's a way to build a Boros mid-range deck as an alternate way instead of building a Boros deck that's heavy on 1-drops?
Yes. I think I've seen bigger Boros decks go for Path of Metal a little bit more often. They're still aggressively slanted, but those decks don't have as many ones. I'm not sure. I think it'd be difficult to pair something like History of Benalia with Rekindling Phoenix. And I don't know how many 4-drops you want between Phoenix and Aurelia, but the power level is there. Tajik would still be good in a deck like that.
Right.
So you have some good removal. So the power's there. The question is whether the mana works, and then once you go bigger, you can play a couple gates and be fine. So yeah. That's definitely a way to take it. I'm not sure that it's a better way to take it because the mentor mechanic specifically works so well with a lower curve, so you can always have bodies on the table to put counters on. So the mechanic itself is pushing you to be really aggressive. So I don't think the mid-range version of the deck would really focus on mentoring. It would just be a sort of good stuff deck.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I think that the thing you pointed out specifically is the curve issue. Like, with Mentor, as you play more expensive creatures, those creatures generally have higher power, which in turn can mentor larger creatures. And if you're just like starting your curve at 2, you're just missing out on like a significant amount of free mentor, basically. Yeah. And that's not really what the guild is about. I mean, I think that a lot of the cards are good enough standalone. Like, I think Aurelia is insane. I think the Tajik is very good. So I think it's just a matter of like, you know, how much does Mentor actually matter, or do you want to use it as like a free roll sometimes, and you just want more powerful cards as you go up the chain?
Okay, one last question for Ross about the Naya tokens deck. So after watching it play out, do you think that you need more 1-drops now to try to go under the other decks, or do you like the plan of kind of going late with something like the Stompy deck here?
Well, Llanowar Elves specifically is the card that punishes you the most for not having more 1s. So I don't think I'd be behind in most matchups, but this is the one that is scariest, especially because it's hard for me to chump block the Steel Leaf Champion. So I think that's an issue in the sideboard where I need more cheap things to bring in. I brought in some cheap removal. Didn't really see it in that game 3. I think I probably should have brought out all of my heroic reinforcements. I think that's a generally kind of weak card in the matchup, even though it was really good when I was ahead in game 2.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe board further down on that. But this is a matchup where I think having some extra Stumphorn sentries in the sideboard would be good. Maybe you want a second main and then 2 more in the sideboard so you can go up to 8. Because blocking... But the thing is, with Pelt Collector, the green decks are going to be incentivized to be playing 2-mana, 3-power creatures. So maybe Stumphorn Sentry isn't exactly what you want. I'm not sure what other 1-drop you can really play. You don't have the mana to play Llanowar Elves.
No, the Informant. I think
Or the Hunted Witness.
Hunted Witness.
Hunted Witness.
I mean, it's at the very least, like, if your opponent does play some sort of Sweeper effect, like, you still get a creature out of it. Like, Doom Traveler was in a lot of these token-based decks for a very long time, just because, you know, it was a way for you to, like, chump block for value early, still have a creature sitting
When was
around.
Doom Traveler in these decks? Are you talking about Thraben Inspector and green-white tokens?
No.
Because I think of this deck as like green-white tokens deck, and I would play a Thraben Inspector-like card. But I think that, honestly, if I had to pick another 1-drop to put in the deck, it would be Sky Marcher Aspirant. It trades more effectively early against 2-mana 3/2 bodies, and it goes into the air. So once you put some counters on it, putting 1 counter on it with a Venerated locks it on, getting the City's Blessing and making a 3/2 flyer is a nice threat.
No, that seems...
So I think
seems pretty
Aspirant
cool.
is the card I might look into.
Cool. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break while we get ready for our third match of the day. Tune in, and we'll be right back.